quantity of storms to increase in the next few hours as we move ahead here. So let's look at kind of a broad version. I think I should have a broad version of Futurecast here, and then we'll kind of go a little more in depth with this. So here is, Futurecast. This is our HRRR model showing the storms all the way to 4 o'clock. Now, first thing I note on this is the positioning is wrong on this model, because this is about where the leading edge of storms are now. And they're not going to move, 2 counties in 4 hours? That's not right. So we're going to look at an adjusted version of this here in a moment, but that tells you that models are too slow in what they're depicting, maybe too heavy because it's running so far ahead. But we will have the rainfall, generally speaking, continue to move eastward over the next 5 to 6 hours, increasing in coverage, raining out some of your evening plans. There'll be lightning, heavy rainfall, some gusty wind, occasionally severe weather. And again, more on that here in just a moment. But again, the overall, and we're looking kind of the wide view on this here to just sort of give you the general overall pattern. This very well advertised complex of thunderstorms moving in, and then regeneration on the backside here, where we're going to have that potential for rainfall, perhaps a secondary complex that shows there, kind of sliding there through the, the Arklamis, moving toward the Jackson area. And overnight, that's a pretty good area of strong winds, potentially with that line there as that tries to progress eastward. Okay, so that's kind of the rough look at that for a moment. Let's look at our strike model, and we're going to look at Storm Finder. So if you are someone who only casually watches us, we appreciate y'all checking us out today, and encourage you to make sure you kind of pick up our apps there for iOS and Android devices, and for all of the different television opportunities, viewing opportunities there. As you can see, search those out on whether it's Fire Stick, Apple TV, Roku, always that you can kind of watch at the same time that you are, you can watch on that platform as well as, on here, or keep your phone charged up. So we're going to look at Storm Finder. This is a Mississippi Live Weather exclusive. Again, something you will see nowhere else but here on Mississippi Live Weather. It allows us to kind of look at the storm potential and look at kind of the different components, the amount of lightning storms are showing, giving us an idea on intensity. So this is Storm Finder, again, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live. First thing I immediately see on Storm Finder is it is also not great on positioning. So honestly, my models are either slow or fast on this, which, I mean, there's a little bit of that goes on either way. I'm going to add in some different data. I'm going to add in the products. I should be able to find composite. Where's my national radar? There we are. Okay. We're going to do some comparison on this. So this is my national radar, right? If I delete that off for a moment, you'll see that that is way different from what we were showing a moment ago there. Now let's compare that again with, we showed the strike model a moment ago. Let's see the positioning here on the HRRR, which is, again, this is a model that's available for a lot of folks. You can technically, if you really wanted to, look this up at home. I would say it is closer on its positioning, but the big takeaway on this is that all models are way slower than the reality of the situation. I'm gonna get rid of that one more time, but yeah, I show way slower versus what the reality of that is. So I'm going to leave both those kind of layered on there as we look at this on Storm Finder, because I think one of the big takeaways, you have big complex 1 and they both have big complex 2. Okay, so now we can make some adjustments on timing and positioning, right? So let's go ahead and we will get rid of HRRR for a second, and we are going to adjust our other models a little farther ahead. So longitudinally will, and latitudinally bring it a little south, just to get a little bit closer to the reality of the situation. So as we remove the radar, that's closer. First big takeaway, in my opinion, is that's way more intense than the reality that we are seeing. But I think that's because of the slow arrival, right? So let's take this actually back just a little bit. I think we're good on the north-south. Let's take that back west just a little bit. There we are. So that's good. We'll latitudinally come down 1 degree. We're going to get the lightning at the same spot as well. So it's important. You might ask, what is the point of all of this? So the point of all this is this allows us to kind of calibrate the model, and it's just everything works better when we kind of have the initial position, initial conditions a little bit better off, right? So again, this shows that there's probably more lightning depicted here on Storm Finder than the reality of the situation. We'll go ahead and kind of bring it back where you can see this full screen here for a moment, as we should clear off that. Okay, so I want you to look at the lightning concentration and how that increases between now and say 3 to 4 o'clock. And you can clearly see that there's this zone back here closer to the Mississippi River where we're much more likely to see this produce damaging and severe weather. And that comes back to that fuel and availability of fuel. These are the spots we're most likely to see that out here in the Delta. That's despite the fact that this has a lot of reds and other, dark sort of colors showing up farther east, right? Like if we look farther east here and we look just at the rainfall, it's easy to look at this and say, well, hold on, that looks the same as that, right? It's the same color of the rainfall on what it's depicting there. But Storm Finder shows the brighter pinks back west, indicating the likelihood that these are stronger storms, greater in that zone. And when we look at the lightning, it clearly paints a picture as well. While red means heavy, red doesn't always mean bad. Red just means heavy. And so we're going to hopefully, God willing, we need it because of the drought conditions we've had, have some heavy rainfall move a little farther east. But where you see these brighter tops here, that says down here closer to Yazoo City and Jackson this evening, where some of those thunderstorms are most likely to produce a ton of lightning and become severe in what they're producing there. And again, that threat, primarily the southern portions of the area. If we kind of clean off that surface lightning here just for a moment, you can see it's going to be, as we're looking at 8:30 or so, this Philadelphia back toward Forest and Jackson area where we're probably seeing this produce some stronger wind gusts, some hailstones, and again, that very limited chance to possibly see a brief tornado. Putting all the lightning back on it, which again is designed largely to draw our attention to where things are the most intense. Notice how there's a secondary flare-up of thunderstorms that develops back into Louisiana. And while this stays south of us, remember something here for a moment, which is when we were calibrating our model, we had to adjust it south a ways. It's still possible we adjusted it too far south, and this would include Greenville, Kosciuszko, back toward Louisville in this heavy and flooding rainfall potential. So just kind of keep that in mind that I've made that adjustment there, but if that adjustment is an incorrect adjustment, that one little thing affects what happens with what's coming on behind it there. Then looking toward tomorrow, we'll continue to have rain and storm chances, probably redevelop in the afternoon, but you'll notice the majority of the activity, at least on this particular projection, stays west of us until this kind of big complex moves in. Now, here's the thing we need to know about this. The fact I had to adjust the model at the beginning has very little effect when you go more than 24 hours out toward tomorrow night on where the next complex is going. So I'm going to take this model at its word, and we're going to bring it back northward to see if it kind of aligns with where it has had some of this activity for tomorrow night, which I do think will be another chance for some active and potentially severe weather in our area as another complex moves in. You can see that is more squarely kind of aimed at us here in Mississippi, but at largely the Delta, working eastward through early Sunday morning. This has been very well advertised in all of our projections here. They have pretty consistently shown that, hey, not a ton of activity during at least this particular projection here, not a ton of activity during the day tomorrow, but then a much better chance tomorrow night for this kind of complex to move in. Damaging winds probable, I would say, with this some hail, and maybe a limited tornado threat as well. And we'll dig into the tornado threat today and tomorrow night, come up here in just a moment. But this, we also, see kind of a couple little waves there. So that's where that increased chances for rainfall on Sunday kind of come in there. Let's plop on our other main projection, what we call the HRRR on this. We kind of layer both on at the same time, so we can kind of get an idea on how they're maybe misbehaving a little bit. And I'm going to check to make sure I have the right color table on that there. Let's get that right, because I have too much color on this. There we go. Those are both playing the same tune now. Okay. So where's that run out of data? Oh, I have that only on latest. Let's change that to 12Z. There we go. That'll go farther in advance. Okay, so now there's a bunch of stuff later on here. But I think one of the important things to take away on this is while the initial positioning is a little bit off on both of these, notice how there's kind of a, oops, nope, I need to go Y. Z and Y, okay. So you can see that there's still this complex that'll be around. It's just the exact positioning is just a little bit shifted on that there. And I do think the HRRR here targeting the delta, I do think that's more accurate. The reason I put this on here though is to look toward tomorrow's chances. I want to see how much rainfall the combination of the two tries to break out in the afternoon. It still keeps the majority of that activity south. So in a lot of ways, if we are targeting a day to do something outside this weekend, Saturday is probably your day. But by Saturday night, look at that. So there's a similar location where we have these both kind of layered up out here into Arkansas, especially southern Arkansas there. And so that is showing that batch going a little farther south. So there's been some consistency on some other projections of trying to keep this complex that could come right over top of us early Sunday, maybe just a little bit south. And that would then target more Jackson, Yazoo City, Forest, Philadelphia. Either way, when it's coming through is late Saturday night into early Sunday morning. So expect that there'll be some thunderstorms around. Potentially, maybe we get lucky enough and that shoots just a little bit south of us. But that kind of trend, both those have sort of agreed over the last 24 hours, agreed to disagree. Our strike model up a little farther north and the HRRR slightly farther south. So and I run out of HRRR data at that point, so we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to go back to, well, I'm going to have to reload this here in order for that to load back in my lightning data. Give me a moment for that. And let's see how far we can take this out toward Monday. So Monday's an interesting day, an additional severe weather chance there as well. As we look toward Monday. So before we go that far, let's show those different risks. I kind of briefly mentioned this a second ago. So our severe weather risk for today, for your Saturday, largely it's back to the west of us out on the plains. By Sunday, though, we do have a severe weather risk that extends into our area for those very, very early morning chances for maybe some showers and thunderstorms, but the majority of the active weather back on the plains. So in a lot of ways, we are very fortunate, and hopefully that's something that continues, because on the plains, as you can see, there was significant tornadoes there, especially into Oklahoma last night, unfortunately. Today's risk, tomorrow's risk, Sunday's risk, Monday's risk, no official risks Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at this point, looking beyond that. But those folks definitely need some prayers out there because of how active things have been. So this is that Sunday severe weather risk. Let's talk Monday. And there's been a shift on Monday's severe weather risk for the last couple of days. Was initially directly over top of us, has shifted northward. Honestly, in a lot of ways, there's just some components that are a little bit out of phase with this. Knock on wood, we don't want severe weather, but we're not that far removed from, I would say we're more of a conditional threat where severe storms could be possible as we look toward Monday. with that. Let's kind of look at our storm finder with that a minute, and let's kind of look at how that is positioning some of those. High resolution models, the only one we have that goes that far out is our strike model. It's the only one you can see here in North Mississippi that goes that far out. So let's kind of walk through it. So you saw those early thunderstorms on Sunday. This doesn't have much into the afternoon and evening. Let's look toward Monday's chances for active weather here. And because it's kind of conditional, you notice how it does not really show much until probably late Monday afternoon. Some spotty thunderstorms coming in. We're going to look at fuel related to this using the crossover, another Mississippi Live exclusive coming up here in just a moment. But notice how that just doesn't have much really develop into anything. God, that would be great. We need the rain, but we don't really want to deal with it. But notice still some additional storms that continue into late Monday night. So the afternoon chances, rather underwhelming. That line, we're on the southern fringe of something more significant that could include damaging winds and tornadoes. We'll look specifically at Storm Finder, and then we'll look specifically at the crossover related to this here in just a moment. So let's look at the specifics on where it's kind of displacing some of these for just a second here. So to do that, we'll pull off all that lightning. And again, join the conversation in our chat. I know that we're doing some technical stuff here. It helps us to kind of sort through everything related to how this plays out for today and for the next couple of days. And this is kind of the first time we're really getting to dig into Monday with any kind of high resolution modeling, showing again some of those isolated storms in the afternoon, then a better chance by late Monday night and pre-dawn early Tuesday morning. So that timing is something we do expect to evolve with this over the next few days. But initial takeaway there, the primary severe weather damaging wind tornado threat is probably to the north of us. You can see on Storm Finder where we have more of the purple there, higher storm chances. Lightning quantity, as we talked about a moment ago there, always a sign of where we've got to watch. And clearly the strongest and most severe thunderstorms are to the north. And then additional severe weather chances, I think, later in the week. So let's refresh here for just a moment. For some folks that might have got on with us a little late, let's talk about where we're at and talk about today, and then we'll talk about, try to answer some of your questions and look more toward the extended. And by the way, before I go any further, please support the people you see on this, I guess, series of sponsors cycling there. Those are people that run commercials with us here that sponsor different products, and they are, frankly, without them, we could not do what we're doing here. And so we're just so thankful for Tupelo Smiles, for everybody else for supporting us here on Mississippi Live. So give me just a second. I have to respond to a friend. Come on by, period. Give Emily a buzz, period. On live now, period. So let's go ahead and kind of give the big overview here for a moment. So our confidence in significant severe weather today, I would say, is not high. In saying that, it's possible we could have a couple of brief tornadoes. That is not the high likelihood out of this. And I think maybe we're oversimplifying it to say tornadoes are unlikely, I think, but brief tornadoes, we'll say, are possible. So let's make that adjustment to this threat graphic there. We're going to say brief. Let's try that. Brief spin-up's not impossible. We do expect some damaging wind gusts, some spotty large hail, and then that heavy rainfall where somebody's going to pick up in the Magnolia State 5 to 6 inches of rainfall over the next day or so, if that boundary sets up like it looks like it really could. Could be overdone a little bit on some projections. Hopefully it is, because that would definitely not be a good thing. So this is our severe weather confidence for today, looking at the various severe weather threats. And this is kind of the big overview graphic here for a moment, looking at the severe risk. We're looking to Monday, but today's risk involves all locations on a level 1, or most of us on a level 2, meaning a greater number of reports in this zone, with the greatest reports back out into far western Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma. Individual risks Yes, there's a tornado risk. Greatest risk, I think, mainly to the south and west, but Greenville, we're watching for you, Kosciuszko as well, closer to Yazoo City. We're going to look at some cameras here in a minute as well. Damaging winds, the most likely impact we could see. We're more vulnerable after the ice storm. You've heard me say it a bunch of times, and I'll probably keep saying it all season long, maybe even the next season. Big hail back into Texas and Oklahoma. For us, there is a limited large hail risk. It's not particularly high. So, I see a lot of folks watching from different locations. We appreciate all of you guys for doing that, and for all of your support. And make sure you have weather call. I'll pop this up while I'm kind of fixing something here behind the scenes as we look at that triple threat here in just a moment. Again, another Mississippi Live exclusive. But yeah, weather call is a phone alert that will let you know if you're in the danger zone. And so when there's a chance for severe weather, dangerous weather, it will give you a call. So, and by that I mean if it's occurring. So if a tornado has been spotted, tornado warning's been issued, one's been confirmed, it will call you and then call you back on that confirmation. So it is definitely something I have for my family. I recommend for yours. It'll call you for dangerous, severe weather, whether it's damaging winds or strong or large hailstones, and it'll call you as well for flooding, major flooding, in particular flash flood emergencies like what they had back in Texas last year. So I have it for my family, recommend it for yours. And one of the big things is just to be thinking about building our armor when there's severe weather. So we have multiple ways to find out if we're in danger. You can see some of those that we recommend, that we endorse below. Obviously, Weather Call, Mississippi Live Weather app have those alerts on. That will let you know not just when we go live, but for active weather as well. And then Code Red, and there as well as a National Weather Service radio. One of the cool things I will say about the Mississippi Live app, there's some alerts on there that aren't going to be perfect, but are earlier warning. It has the ability to look at rotation in thunderstorms. And if there's rotation detected even before tornado warning is issued, it will give you a phone call and say, hey, there's a dangerous twisting storm. Excuse me, it won't give you a phone call. It will pop up an alert saying, hey, there's a dangerous twisting storm moving toward you. Sometimes that could end up becoming a tornado at some point. Other times it won't. It's kind of an earlier warning. I have it on for my family. I recommend, having some of those alerts on just to give that earliest possible, hey, something could be up with that. So it will give you some of those alerts using some proprietary technology here that we have at Mississippi Live. So really excited to have that for you. So one of the many reasons we recommend the app there. Okay, now let's talk about triple threat. So this is a Mississippi Live exclusive. And so this allows us to look at rotation, damaging wind, and large hail all on the same graphic. In doing so, we can kind of analyze where do we have what threats and how concerned should we be. This, again, triple threat is a Mississippi Live exclusive. First takeaway I need to tell you on triple threat here is, again, the positioning is too slow versus what we're seeing on models. And hopefully that's a sign that maybe models are overdoing it. I would love that to be the case. But we are depicting some rotation out of some of the thunderstorms here. But looking at this, this does not look like necessarily tornado rotation. It's rotation that might help it to kick up some stronger wind gusts that might then allow it to eventually try to produce large hail and maybe brief tornadoes. So this is not a high-level tornado setup by any stretch of the imagination. Look at the rotation that we are seeing here. This kind of shows that accumulated rotation over time. It also shows that there will be some spots where we have the potential for some hail out here. Chula, Hollandale, Greenville, back toward Cleveland. You might just be able to, as we talked about a little earlier, scoot this a little bit farther south, hopefully. But those will be some of the spots that we'll be targeting for maybe some of that large hail potential this evening. And then as that big complex of thunderstorms moves southward, you can see that it takes most of what it has with it there. So breaking down these three threats for a moment, you can see on top there clearly all the hail that we're dealing with. Let's pull off hail. Let's go strictly to the wind gusts. And clearly there's a clustering of the strongest wind gusts out here, Clarksdale, Cleveland, back toward Yazoo City, southward there. Some kind of a additional redevelopment of a line of storms in some of those spots, a possibility, and that's where some of those stronger wind gusts could come in. Bringing it back here to just the storm rotation for a moment on this. And kind of my analysis on this is we don't have any very obvious tracks, and I don't really show any out there with this. I don't know that I can let me try something here. I'm gonna see if I can make my model go back and look at 18Z yesterday. Is that gonna work? Let's check here. No, that might be 18Z today. Nope, that's 18Z yesterday. We'll try one other thing on this. Nope, I'm not going to get back. I wanted to give you an example of what it looked like back on the plains when they had some significant tornadoes last night. And it looks like, to me, I can't get back to show you that. But what we have here, when this moves through, and when we look at this, let's get rid of the hail, let's get rid of the wind. These look like short time, maybe brief sort of spin-ups. If we were to see something, you can clearly see where the greatest likelihood is to maybe see something like that. But I think looking at this, the big takeaway, in my opinion, is that this is, again, not a tornado event, but one could possibly briefly form. Now, looking toward your Saturday, notice how not much through much of the day, but then you see this batch here, and unfortunately, this does end up layering up over time because this is kind of your accumulated threat here. But that's that big line of storms that we were tracking that's pretty intense there. And most of these white returns, let's look at this here for a second. I wonder if I can just get this to do just instantaneous hail diameter. Let's try that. Let's try this. Let's do instantaneous updraft helicity. Okay. And let's try instantaneous wind gusts. That might have changed my color table. It did change my color table in each case. So here, blue. There we are. I think that should be right. Yeah, swath blue. Okay. And let's fix the other one there. Make sure that's on the right. There we go. Okay. Now I think we've got everything all on the same. So this will be able to give you kind of an instantaneous look at this. Maybe this is listen, the cool thing about developing this is that we're still figuring out the best way to end up showing this. So this gives you a good idea of where the most severe weather is with that line. And clearly with that overnight line leading into early Sunday morning, there's going to be some rotation with that. There's going to be some hail potentially with that, though I think the hail threat might be overdone. And you can pretty clearly see that back into Arkansas is where that's most likely to be strong to severe, though there is that one little area there that if that batch gets going pretty good, and we do get this kind of form like this, I think that timing's a little bit late there, but a possibility that maybe you get a couple of batches of strong straight line winds and maybe some rotation and a brief tornado threat that does continue into early morning Sunday as well. But for our area up here in the northern part of the state of Mississippi, for the most part, kind of looking at this here, yeah, we're going to watch this for Forest and Philadelphia for you. But I think the majority of what we have out here is probably sub-severe wind, and it might end up being a little farther west than what we're indicating here on the triple threat. And then kind of looking toward Monday's severe weather. Showing it clearly up there toward Springfield, Missouri, or Springfield, Illinois, actually. Chicago. This is going to be a much, much more rough situation. The part of the line that moves closer to us, though, is interesting that if it can really get going, there still remains a tornado threat that could go along with this as well. As you can see, these isolated storms in the pre-dawn hours of early Tuesday morning. But in general, compared to some of the brighter returns where we would expect to see, again, significant rotation, extreme damaging winds, or extremely large hail, we don't end up seeing those same sort of, we don't see that same thing here, thankfully, on that. So again, that's triple threat. Again, a way we can kind of assess all the different components with that chance. And that's part of the reason why when we look at the severe risk areas today, hail, as we mentioned, it's where we stopped looking a minute ago there, back to the back to the west. That overnight chance, because there's a different potential there on Sunday where this could go, that's why this is not a higher risk level. I think if models were to completely converge and show that big line coming through and all kind of agree on that, then this risk level could be increased somewhat. So that's something that we're looking out for the next couple of days. And then the severe risk from Monday, you see the reason why it's to the north and already a level 3 out of 5 severe weather risk. That's because everything is definitely more aimed at location north. We're on the maybe possibly side, and they're on the gonna happen side up to the north. Okay, so let's look beyond that. And yet another thing that we've, one of the cool things we've been able to do over the last year is kind of develop some things you can't see anywhere else that hopefully help us to give you a better idea on what the weather's going to do. One of those is what we call the crossover. Again, another Mississippi Live exclusive. The crossover shows us ingredients for bad weather, severe weather, tornadoes, etc. When we see the ingredients cross over one another in the right way, that's where severe weather becomes more likely. So this is the crossover, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live. And so as I'm looking at this for tomorrow's, today we have enough that, again, a limited chance to see some of those strong severe thunderstorms. This product does better when we look in the future where we don't have good high resolution modeling. Looking toward tomorrow, one of the reasons we think tomorrow night we could have some of those storms start northwest and move southeast into our areas, we have this generally kind of west and northwest flow aloft. That shows us that the strong winds aloft are going to be moving over top of us and kind of guiding that complex into the oranges are fuel. So we have fuel here. With the lower level winds are kind of a missing component for tomorrow. If we had lower level winds shooting into this complex, we'd for sure have severe weather because that helps to maintain what we call an MCS. We don't have as strong low level winds, and so that's one of the things that hopefully will limit that threat a little bit. Looking into Sunday, possibility to, again, see some thunderstorms trying to pop up, but we don't have, I think, the perfect setup for this. There's more fuel back to the west of us. That's what the yellows indicate there. But we do have this strong kind of upper level system here that is moving in from the west. And this is what's going to provide a Monday severe weather chance. As this kind of digs in, you'll notice that the dip that we see here in the jet stream is all the way up there in Omaha, Nebraska. This is an area up here where we showed, our model showing a lot of severe weather. You have the purples there close to the surface. I'll bring it in where you can see that a little bit. But the purples close to the surface, if I can get beneath the jet stream there, those are the strong winds coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, moving moisture northward, helping to organize those thunderstorms. If I slide it back out, you can see that there's a difference in wind direction here, right? Between these white arrows, the upper level winds, strong winds, kind of diverging, but also crossing over the lower level winds there. That's what we call directional shear. That helps to get storms to rotate. So if you have fuel on enough directional shear, speed shear, then we get what we have, which is that severe weather threat. And so we can clearly see the ingredients are crossing over to the north. So that's why we call this the crossover, is it allows us to see that everything is much more aimed at the severe weather potential, maybe even outbreak up there, St. Louis north toward the Chicago area. We're on the southern end, and there is somewhat of a crossover right there overnight, maybe a little bit of a crossover for about that long. We will go back and look at that here in just a moment. But that's where some of that potential comes in for us. So we're still conditional on if we have enough fuel, if everything kind of lines up just right. So now looking beyond that, Tuesday, early day, we mentioned some storms. The fuel sticks around. The upper level winds are not the right everything, and we're waiting on this next trough. By Wednesday, that is still back out to the west of us. And again, we are looking this would be next week as we're looking toward Thursday. Another storm system kind of approaching. We've been watching pretty closely that potential by Thursday next week. This version of our European model does not have as favorable crossover there. So that's a good sign. As we go toward Friday, not as much as well. So hopefully that continues. That looks like late next week things are looking a little bit better for us. And then after that, that'll clear the moisture out and we'll be kind of drier for more than a few days. It'll probably take well into May before we start to see this pattern change back over a little bit more for us. So there we go. There, Wednesday, and again, a week from Wednesday. Again, looking long range for you. This all could line up a little bit more as we get closer there. Again, May 7th, current day is April 24th. So we're looking a long ways in the future. Things will change dramatically on that next couple of days. So let's bring this in and let's look at our crossover once again. And I'm going to use a slightly different version of our model here. And I want to go in and look closely at the chances for Monday. So looking specifically at Monday, kind of early morning here, plenty of fuel around, not much in strong lower level winds until late. Okay, so this is when we had some of those thunderstorms moving over top of us. The black arrows indicate near surface winds. I'll take off here the upper level contour for just a moment. I think that should here in strong severe weather up that direction, but you can see we have this direction of all these winds kind of come up from the Gulf of America, Mexico, whatever, from the Gulf there, and bringing on more moisture from the south there. So then we also have strong winds, at least some directional shear there on Monday on this particular version. We call diffluence also there as well. This could still be a scenario here where we're talking about damaging wind, tornadoes, and hail. I think we're definitely still in a zone looking specifically at that overnight time period here where we could have severe weather with that line as that moves into and through the area. And then some of those chances could continue into Tuesday. I'm interested because we have a lot of lower level fuel. I don't know if we're going to have a perfect surface initiation. You know, we don't have a true front or something like that to really get things going. By Thursday, we'll see on the positioning. That's slow enough now that I don't know that we're going to have things fully in place by next Thursday. Hopefully not. Obviously don't want to. So yeah, so looking toward next week, there are additional severe weather chances beyond today that do include possibly Saturday night and Sunday, and then Monday, and then maybe one later next week. So definitely layering up some things there over the next week or so. Okay, so let's answer some specifics here for just a moment. Again, appreciate everybody for watching us, liking, subscribing, the whole 9 yards there. So folks want to know specifics about their town, their locations. So let's kind of talk through a few of those. Let's get a feel for what things are like outside right now. Probably best way to do that is to check out some of our cameras here across North Mississippi. I'm going to start here in the Tupelo area. We've had a few isolated showers kind of popping up here close by. Measure of moisture, that dew point there coming in around 64, so it's not super duper high, but a lot more fuel than what we had yesterday at this point. But all those clouds look pretty flat. Very little development on our Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling Skycam there in the Tupelo area. Going out to Batesville, back toward the Delta, that 64 versus dew point at 59, so that's a little bit lower there on that nearby reporting station. And again, looking back westward towards some of those showers that are ongoing for there. If I step out of the way, you can see how there's the showers, again, western portion there of Panola County, where we're starting to see, again, some of those. As we check out here, let's go farther west, kind of deeper into this and see if we can get a better look at some of the moisture levels on that there. Back in Clarksdale, dew point a little higher at 60. You can see some of those showers there looking out. A little bit of a bob on the camera there. Again, all these cameras, part of our partnership with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers here, 501c3 nonprofit that is working to help put cameras out there so we can track storms all over the place. And we're just so thankful to be kind of partnering with them. Our camera there in Cleveland showing the storm pretty much right overhead at this time. Let's see here. Give me a second to kind of move one of my monitors up here for a second so I can see below it. Give me just a moment. I'm going to move that over the side. I'm going to see if we can get that camera up, and we might swing that camera just a little bit to the left, because right behind my head there, see how it gets kind of lighter gray? That's some of those showers out that direction. Right there. I always want a password, right? fuel station. So this would be Cleveland. I'm not showing Cleveland on my list at the moment. That's interesting. I'll have to check with the storm chasers on that, but it looks like Cleveland is not on my list at the moment. So we're just going to play pretend. So this is where storms are a little bit heavier out that direction, back out closer to Cleveland, closer to Greenville. And we'll check out our camera there in the Greenville area, because it does look like that camera's in and out on how it's behaving and misbehaving at this moment. And there's some of the darker clouds. We do have Greenville axis. You see, assuming I know my ABCs, I can get the right camera. Let's go ahead and pan this down just a smidgen. Say that. I'm not showing access on any of these. On dashboard. Hey, yeah, okay, there it is. Let's see, Greenville. Yeah, I do not have Greenville access, just so you know, James, because I know North Mississippi Storm Chasers stay with us. I cannot actually move Greenville at this point, so I don't know if there's some of these I can and can't, but we'll get that figured out by later on today. But you can see out there in Greenville, notice that dew point at 66, so that is a bit higher there as well. So big headline, if this doesn't look impressive to you, it does not look particularly impressive to me right now. Things have run a little bit faster. The green that you see out here north of Oxford is a batch of thunderstorms moving slower. As we've talked about over and over again, the northern part of the state less likely to see active and severe weather than down here, Water Valley, back toward Grenada, Greenwood, Chula, Greenville, back out in the Delta. Much more likely to see something active out here. There's nothing on this that's super strong at this moment. We'll check from a couple of different radar locations. We'll start off with the Memphis radar. That can kind of look into there. We're seeing, again, some redevelopment with this batch there that's going to be moving toward Alcorn County, Tippah County, but that's, again, below severe levels. As we showed you a moment ago, some storms around the Cleveland area, but those are not particularly impressive. And looking down from the Jackson area back up, maybe the best shot that we have at that, that all largely looks like it's well below severe limits and no significant wind in that at this point as well. So we're just kind of waiting to see how much more fuel can really feed into these, because we talked about, right off the top, this represents in a lot of ways that fuel in a real-time sense, where we show that moisture that's heading northward out here into the plains, and we are a little bit more limited in what we are seeing back here in the Mississippi. We have some, but it's not as significant. So, few takeaways here for a moment. We will be here to bring you live coverage as necessary. I do not anticipate, looking at what we're looking at right now, to do a whole lot of what we call wall-to-wall severe weather today. Our next scheduled live broadcast will be 5 p.m. If we have something we think is damaging, we're going to come on before that point there. 6 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., our live broadcasts here in the Room to Room Weather Center, 6:37 and 7:30 a.m., Monday through Friday. Of course, on the weekends, we're 6, 9, and 10 p.m. So I just want to make sure you had kind of an idea on when you could expect to see us next on your television screen, on your smartphone, on those different devices there. So here's kind of the overview one more time here. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather, a 24/7 streaming service based out of the Tupelo area, and our storm coverage will increase as we go into the afternoon. Some storms could produce damaging wind. Other storms could try to maybe briefly produce tornadoes or large hailstones. A lot of heavy rainfall likely out of these storms. Our confidence as far as severe weather is concerned, not super duper high. A brief spin up tornado, not impossible, but we're not talking about strong tornadoes. Some damaging wind gusts a possibility, but we're not talking about widespread, everybody gets it severe weather. This is just, we're largely sensitive to the ice storm and branches and trees that are weaker because of it. Spotty large hail, a possibility, but most of us probably not seeing much there. And then the heavy rainfall, with some rainfall totals becoming pretty significant over the next couple of days. If I just look conservatively at the rainfall here, and something that I did jump a little past a moment ago. As far as excessive rainfall is concerned, a possibility maybe to see some flash flooding over the next 24 hours. Not a guarantee there, not a super duper high risk. We would look at over the next 7 days in rainfall. This is one of the concerns that we do have a potential with just so many rainfall chances ahead that the rainfall amounts could be pretty significant with amounts on what typically is a pretty conservative graphic here, showing some rainfall totals in excess of not 2 to 4 to maybe 5 inches of rain over the next week. Going day by day on that over the next 24 hours, more inch to inch and a quarter there. Looking towards Saturday, mostly missing us. Sunday, those chances aren't as good as well. But going into next week, another 3/4 of an inch, another 3/4 of an inch, another 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. And another one's look toward Thursday. So while we have been very dry recently, we transition much more wet over the next week. So we definitely need the rainfall. Not expected to see a lot of folks, getting too terribly upset about that. But looking for the first 3 days here over the next 3 days, inch and a half with isolated amounts greater than that. And then looking beyond that point in time toward next Monday and Tuesday, maybe another inch to 2 inches, another inch to 2 inches by Wednesday and Thursday. So definitely some storm chances, rain chances ahead. Keep it locked in here to Mississippi Live Weather, and make sure, as we often say, to build that armor there. Have multiple ways to find out if you're in the danger zone. Don't rely on just one. Weather call is what I have from my family. You can find more information at msliveweather.com/weathercall, as well as picking up our iOS and Android apps. Hey, and search for Mississippi Live if you're going to look for our apps there on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. If you search for Mississippi Live, you'll find it. If you search for Mississippi Live Weather, you won't. And the reason is just because when you search for weather, it tells you can't find your weather. That's just somehow somebody's programmed that in, makes it difficult to find us because of that. Search for Mississippi Live. Tell your friends, tell your family. And we'll be here to give you updates as necessary. Hopefully, we're not going to have a whole lot of issues with that. One thing to keep in mind as we're preparing before this is, if you are in one of those zones where we have potential for severe weather today, you probably want to make sure to keep that phone charged. Make sure you have hard-soled shoes around, especially when warnings are issued for your area. Have those medications and documents all kind of aligned in the same spot there. Get within steps of your safe plates. And if necessary, if severe weather is bad enough, if we think we're going to have tornadoes or strong damaging winds for your area, we're tracking and moving toward you. No mobile home is safe on a day where we have high-end severe weather because there's no way to truly get the foundation into the ground the right way unless you're pouring a foundation and bolting it the same way that you would with a site-built structure. So unless you have a solid foundation, even tie downs weaken over time, unfortunately. There are 360, maybe 361 days a year where that's not an issue. And we're hoping that this is one of those 360 days because this is not a high-end risk. But chances for tornadoes do get better as we go into the extended forecast over the next week or so. So we'll definitely be watching that potential as well. I mentioned this a moment ago, mention it one more time here. Next broadcast is going to be at 5 o'clock unless, for whatever reason, it warrants us coming on a little bit sooner. Thank you for supporting us here in the Room to Room Weather Center on Mississippi Live Weather.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.